Welcome to the Innovative Teacher. Today we're turning our focus to one of the most important pieces of the immersive learning puzzle, building teacher capacity. We've talked before about VR, immersive experiences, and aligning technology with pedagogy, but none of that works unless teachers feel confident and supported to use these tools in meaningful ways. The technology itself doesn't transform learning. Teachers do. Yet this is where many schools stumble. I've seen schools invest heavily in VR headsets, immersive software, and even pre-packaged experiences, but leave teachers to figure it all out on their own. That might generate a few sparks of excitement, a handful of great lessons, but it rarely scales or endures. Without deliberate support, immersive learning can feel fragile, dependent on the enthusiasm of a few early adopters. And when those champions leave or become overextended, practice quietly fades, leaving hardware underused and potential unrealized. One pattern I notice repeatedly is that one-off training sessions almost never produce lasting change. Schools bring in a consultant or run a workshop, and teachers leave feeling inspired. They talk about how amazing the technology is and envision all the ways they could use it. But then reality sets in. Teachers return to full schedules, diverse student needs, assessment pressures, and classroom management challenges. That inspiration struggles to survive in the face of everyday teaching realities. And this isn't a failure of teachers. Far from it. It's a failure of design. Schools often treat professional development as an event, a single point in time, rather than as an ongoing infrastructure to support practice. Teachers aren't robots. They are humans working in complex, ever-changing systems. Staff change roles, new teachers arrive, curriculum priorities evolve, and timetables shift. Expecting a single workshop to sustain immersive learning is unrealistic. Research tells the same story. Professional development is most effective when it's ongoing, collaborative, and connected directly to classroom practice. Short, isolated sessions might raise awareness or spark enthusiasm, but they rarely produce real, durable change. One-off sessions fail because they don't account for staff turnover, they assume immediate confidence rather than gradual competence, and they separate learning from classroom realities. Introducing immersive technology isn't just about learning new tools. It challenges established routines, lesson pacing, classroom management, and even how teachers see themselves professionally. A teacher might leave a workshop inspired, but still unsure how to translate that enthusiasm into a 50-minute lesson that addresses the diverse needs of their students. Without ongoing reinforcement, initial excitement fades, and VR becomes something teachers intend to use rather than something they actually use. So how do we do it differently? How do we ensure teachers feel confident not just with the hardware, but with the pedagogical value of immersive learning? Confidence isn't a binary switch. It develops over time in stages. Teachers need to trust that VR actually enhances learning rather than distracting from it, that it aligns with curriculum goals, and that it doesn't introduce unmanageable workload or risk. And that trust is earned through experience, not persuasion. In practical terms, this means starting small. Early wins are critical. Short, low-stakes experiences that are clearly aligned to curriculum outcomes give teachers a sense of success without overwhelming them. For example, some schools have started by introducing just 2 short VR experiences, allowing teachers to trial each one, observe student engagement, and reflect together. Within a term, confidence begins to grow, not because teachers know everything but because they see immersive learning work in their classrooms. They experience success in a safe, scaffolded way. Building teacher confidence is best approached as a layered process. It begins with structured onboarding where expectations and routines are clearly defined. Teachers need to know where the technology fits into their day and what the school expects from its use. Observing peers model practice is equally powerful. When teachers see a colleague integrate immersive learning effectively, it demystifies the process and builds practical understanding. Gradually, teachers can experiment in their own classrooms, starting with simple lessons before scaling to more complex applications. Mentorship, whether through formal VR champions or informal peer networks, provides a safety net and encourages collaboration rather than isolation. A critical aspect of building capacity is creating an environment where it's safe to fail. Technical glitches happen, students behave unpredictably, and lessons aren't always perfect. Professional learning that models troubleshooting, problem-solving, and adaptive thinking reduces anxiety and builds resilience. When mistakes are normalized as part of the learning process, teachers are more willing to experiment, innovate, and persist. Sustainable teacher capacity goes beyond workshops to systems of ongoing professional learning. Schools that succeed tend to implement multi-layered support structures, designated VR champions who mentor colleagues, communities of practice where teachers can share strategies and challenges, reflection cycles that focus on learning impact and iterative improvement, and short, regular check-ins rather than a single annual PD day. This iterative, supported approach mirrors effective student learning. Teachers grow gradually with opportunities to embed and reflect on new practice in real classroom contexts. Staff turnover is another factor that often gets overlooked. New teachers frequently inherit immersive technology without sufficient guidance or context. Without structured onboarding, they're left to figure things out themselves, which can erode consistency and confidence across the school. Schools that embed VR induction into staff onboarding, provide clear guides and walkthroughs, and pair new teachers with mentors or VR champions set up immersive learning for long-term sustainability. By aligning VR use with existing planning processes and school routines, it becomes part of the institutional culture, rather than dependent on memory or the enthusiasm of a few individuals. Leadership also plays a vital role in building teacher capacity. Professional learning doesn't succeed on teacher effort alone. Leaders must strategically plan and resource immersive learning programs. That includes providing time for professional development, allocating hardware and software budgets, maintaining licenses, and ensuring risk management protocols are in place for student safety and well-being. Leaders also communicate cultural signals that immersive learning is valued, which reinforces teacher engagement and legitimacy. Without aligned leadership, professional development efforts are isolated and fragile, regardless of how motivated individual teachers are. Cultural readiness is just as important as skill development. Teachers must perceive immersive learning as part of the learning ecosystem, not as a novelty or a compliance exercise. This requires a shared vision, open collaboration, transparent communication about successes and challenges, and recognition of innovation without pressure. When teachers see VR as supporting their practice rather than being an added burden, engagement increases naturally. Principles from change management, such as celebrating short-term wins and building coalitions of support, help schools foster adoption without coercion. Accountability is another piece of the puzzle. If teachers feel they are being monitored or evaluated rather than supported, they are less likely to take risks and innovate. Effective approaches focus on growth and reflection. Observations center on improvement. Collaborative discussions encourage shared learning, and documentation captures insights rather than rigid reporting requirements. Mentorship and guidance take precedence over compliance, fostering a culture where teachers are willing to persist and innovate. Sustaining immersive learning also requires consideration of technical and organizational risks. Hardware and software fail, student safety and well-being must be managed, equitable access needs to be ensured across cohorts, and continuity during staff turnover must be accounted for. Layered support structures combining VR champions, digital learning leaders, and leadership oversight provide resilience against these challenges. Professional learning that endures does so because teacher-level growth and system-level capacity evolve together. One-off workshops introduce tools, but embedded, ongoing professional learning builds real capability. When teachers are supported through structured confidence building, peer collaboration, leadership alignment, and thoughtful onboarding, immersive learning becomes sustainable. It stops relying on the enthusiasm of a few early adopters and instead becomes part of the school's culture. When these pieces come together, teachers feel confident. Students benefit from meaningful, engaging, and measurable immersive learning experiences. Technology becomes a tool that supports teaching rather than a novelty that distracts from it. The school gains coherence and consistency. Teachers are empowered to innovate thoughtfully, and immersive learning becomes a reliable, integrated part of everyday practice. As we conclude this episode, we've seen that building teacher capacity isn't about a single workshop or handing out headsets. It's about creating ongoing, embedded professional learning that supports teachers, aligns with school systems, and fosters sustainable practice. It's about confidence, collaboration, leadership alignment, and resilience. When we get this right, immersive learning moves beyond novelty and becomes a transformative, integrated part of how the school learns. In our next episode, we'll continue this journey by exploring how immersive learning can be implemented in ways that prioritize student safety, well-being, and inclusive practice, showing how thoughtful design and classroom strategies ensure technology supports learning without compromising care. Until then, keep observing, keep reflecting, and keep thinking like an innovative teacher. Thanks for listening.